everyone, I'm Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. Today I'm going to be talking about the stage musicals I want to see. So a few weeks ago I made a video ranking all the stage musicals I'd seen. So today I'm going to do the exact opposite and rank the ones I want to see. Before we start, I just want to clarify that this list will only contain musicals that I have not seen. There are plenty of musicals that I have already seen that I would go and see again. I will go see Wicked, My Fair Lady and The Sound of Music any chance I get. But these are just the ones I've never seen and would really like to. This list is pretty short because it only contains musicals I really want to see. If you watch my ranking musical videos, I talked about how several of them I just went and saw because it was the thing I did with my grandmother. And a lot of those musicals I was not absolutely desperate to see. I liked seeing them, but I was not absolutely desperate to. I'm sure in the future I'll go and see musicals I'm not absolutely desperate to see, but for now we're just going to talk about the ones that I do. The ones I will see in the future, though, without being desperate to see them, I really don't know what they would be, so we're not counting them in this video. So now that that's out of the way, let's get into the list. Number 1 is Hamilton. Can you see my picture back there? I've also got a Schuyler Sisters one. I am obsessed with Hamilton, especially right now. I saw Moana at the beginning of 2017, and then about halfway through the year, about June, say, so almost a year ago, I listened to Hamilton for the first time. So I spent the first half of 2017 listening to Moana, and the second half of 2017 listening to Hamilton. It was the year of Lin-Manuel Miranda. The obsession for Hamilton has not gone away. If anything, it's actually increased. I love this musical right now. Love. And that's the reason it's at the top of this list, because I am obsessed with it right now. A significant chunk of the conversations I have with my dad is just quoting Hamilton lyrics to each other, especially King George's songs. It seems like every time something vaguely interesting happens, he'll say awesome, and I'll go, wow! And if it's not that, it's the beginning of Yorktown.
Immigrants, we get the job done!
So my reason for wanting to see Hamilton is a little different from the others I want to see, but nevertheless, it's at the top of this list and I need to see it now. That original cast filmed production that Lynn talked about cannot come soon enough. So that's pretty much all I have to say on this one. Awesome! Wow! Number 2 is Camelot. The reason I want to see Camelot is very similar to the reason I wanted to see My Fair Lady. Julie was the original leading lady, and the movie sucks. Okay, maybe that's a bit harsh. I watched the film last year when it was May, and I mostly did that just because I wanted to figure out the plot. Because just listening to the soundtrack doesn't give you the full story in the way that, say, well, Hamilton does. I feel like I know a lot more about Hamilton's plot after just listening to the soundtrack than I did with Camelot before I watched the film. And yet, even then I had to do some digging around on the internet before I could fully comprehend the entirety of Camelot's plot. So, the biggest reason I want to see Camelot is clearly because Julie was Guinevere to begin with. And yes, I know when I see Camelot it will not be Julie playing Guinevere, that's just not possible. Here's to hoping she directs a 60th anniversary production in 2020. But even if it's not Julie, it can't get worse than Vanessa Redgrave. And I didn't hate Vanessa Redgrave. Or maybe I did. It's hard to tell. I thought the biggest problem was her singing. It wasn't even that it was a problem, per se. It was just very clear that they seem to have had to cut or slow down the best and most impressive parts of the songs.
I do applaud your noble goals. Now let us see if you achieve them. And if you do, then you will be the three who will go to the ball, to the show, and take me to... I do applaud your noble goals. Now let us see if you achieve them. And if you do, then you will be the three who will go to the ball, to the show, and
fine though. Though she did have, as Monty Python puts it,
that open-mouthed, vacant look that Vanessa Redgrave's got off to a T.
I think the main reason I actually associate that expression with Camelot is because it was less than a week after I watched Camelot that my dad showed me that skit show, whatever you want to call it. But of course I've been rambling on about the movie and we're not here to talk about that, we're here to talk about the stage version. And the nutshell of it is basically the same as My Fair Lady. Julie did it originally and I want to see it on stage because I have no investment whatsoever in the film version. In a way, the next one is actually a little similar, though it doesn't have anything to do with Julie, and that is Phantom of the Opera. And what I mean by similar is that though I have no investment in the Joel Schumacher film, or even that much of a memory of it, I have seen the 25th anniversary production at the Royal Albert Hall on DVD, and I really enjoyed that. If you saw my video a couple weeks back that talked about Love Never Dies, you know I saw Ramin Karimloo in concert, and I absolutely loved it. He was so enjoyable. So I really do love watching the DVD version. But there are some things you just can't get with filmed performances, and I think Phantom would be one of the biggest examples of this. They drop a friggin' chandelier onto the stage. You can't get that experience from watching a DVD, and I'd love to see that in person. Plus, seeing Phantom in person would line up very nicely with the fact that I saw Love Never Dies in person, and then I would have seen both Phantom and Love Never Dies in person, and both on the DVD as well. Next on the list is The Boyfriend. Same reason as Camelot, Julie originated the role. And if I'm getting this right, I imagine the film version of The Boyfriend is worse than My Fair Lady and Camelot combined. Julie actually made Thoroughly Modern Millie because they weren't able to make a film version of The Boyfriend. So they made another movie set in the 1920s starring Julie as the innocent heroine with the boy who's got a fortune but she doesn't know it at the beginning. I think I've got that right. At least that's what I've heard. I know less about the plot of The Boyfriend than I did Camelot pre-watching the film. But as I mentioned, despite not being able to make The Boyfriend with Julie, they made it 2 or 3 years later with Twiggy. Which is what I meant when I said it's probably worse than My Fair Lady and Camelot combined. I could be completely wrong, I haven't seen it, but I also have no intention of seeing it. I did actually see my school do The Boyfriend years ago, but I remember absolutely nothing of it. The only thing I remember is my friend's sister played Polly Brown, and the only reason I know she played Polly Brown was because the only thing I remember was her singing the song The Boyfriend at the beginning. At the time, I didn't know Julie's connection to the show at all, and it's only because I found out since that I know who Sky was playing, because that is all I remember from the show when I saw my school do it. So Julie is the main reason I want to see The Boyfriend, and really, I want to see anything that has any connection with her. That's why I have every film she's ever made in my collection. That brings us to my final official one, which is Victor Victoria. This is my final one because it's very unlikely that it will ever come back. Julie had obviously starred in the film version in 1982, and she and Blake turned it into a stage version for her to star in a way that Lerner and Loewe did not create My Fair Lady or Camelot for her to star in, or even Rodgers and Hammerstein creating Cinderella for her to star in, I would imagine. So because of that, I think it's very unlikely to ever come back, unless it's under Julie's direction. And even though I definitely would go and see it if I had the opportunity, I have the Broadway production on DVD, and because that's got Julie in it, I think even if I saw it on stage, I'd prefer the DVD one, because Julie's in it. So there are the 5 musicals I desperately want to see. I would also very much like to see anything Rodgers and Hammerstein, so all of these. I would also most definitely like to see anything Lerner and Loewe, which is all these. Obviously, in regards to Rodgers and Hammerstein, I have already seen Sound of Music on stage, and for Lerner and Loewe, I have seen My Fair Lady on stage. But everything else, I definitely want to see. And I'd go back and see those 2 again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And yes, Camelot is Lerner and Loewe, but I want to see it more than any other Lerner and Loewe production that I haven't seen, for the reason I've brought up several times. Julie. So that's everything for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments what musicals you want to see. Are there any you want to see that I also want to see? Are there any that I want to see that you have seen? Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my video next week. So long, farewell!